Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for showing interest in this Egyptian-focused energy panel. I'd like to thank my speakers also today. So, without further introductions to the speakers, I think today the discussion is around the developments in the energy sector in Egypt with a focus on renewable energy. We'll touch on the discovery of the supergiant gas field as well and how that could affect the landscape in Egypt and the region. We'll also talk a little bit about what His Excellency, the Minister, touched upon in terms of what would be the ideal energy mix for a country with the size of Egypt. And we'll finish off with some positives and perhaps areas for further improvements around the investment decisions. So, you know, we have seen in last year the announcement of the Zohr gas field. It's a supergiant field, and today we have Fuad, who's representing Eni. So I asked the question in terms of how significant is this discovery, and perhaps if you can share with the audience also some facts around this discovery.
Okay, thank you, Bakr. Let me start by giving a brief description of the Zohr discovery. Zohr is located approximately 100 kilometers offshore the Nile Delta in a water depth that ranges between 12 to 1,700 meters. Zohr is considered the largest discovery in the Mediterranean Sea and the fourth biggest gas field in the world in the last 10 years. The numbers are quite impressive. Our preliminary estimates of the gas in place is more than 30 TCF, which should be enough to provide the whole of Egypt with gas for around 20 years at the current consumption rates. In 2014, there was a limited availability of natural gas in Egypt, as you probably all know, which impacted the industry and the power generation sectors. This led to having the dual fuel power plants to be switched to oil. And in 2015, Egypt installed 2 floating regasification units and started importing natural gas through LNG. When Zohr is in full production, it will allow Egypt to cancel the need to import LNG, which is expected to grow in the short and the medium terms. The demand growth will be stimulated due to the competitiveness of the gas pricing compared to what it will be without this energy source. The recent past has seen an increase in demand for the Egyptian gas, pushed by economic development and demographic growth, while domestic gas production has declined due to depletion of some of the fields and the lack of new gas discoveries. From an oil and gas sector point of view, the discovery will mean that the development can be accelerated due to the possibility of being able to leverage the already existing infrastructure. This, in turn, will provide a boost to exploration and development in the country. It is for this that the fast-track development plan for Zohr is a shared target, not only from the Egyptian government, but also from ANI. This will permit a much-needed increase in the domestic production.
Okay, thank you very much. Khaled, I would like to take your view on how do you see this discovery potentially turning Egypt into an energy hub? And when we say energy hub, what exactly do we mean, and connecting with which countries, and what sort of potentially infrastructure that will be needed to turn this into a hub?
Thank you, Bakr. Actually, this discovery is bringing reassurance to the Egyptian exploration business and development business. As you know, things have slowed down since 2010. And this discovery comes within the new 56 concession that were signed in early January 2014. So we are expecting much more. It gives us confidence on the short term. It gives a boost for the market, for the oil and gas business, although with the price of oil slowing down, it's a good time to invest on the development on the medium term. But on the longer term, of course, and as Fuad mentioned, it gives the confidence to close the gap shortage that start to develop in Egypt in the gas business. So far, we are producing 43 BCM per year, and this discovery at full development will produce 30 BCM. So that's how big one single discovery. And it's the first one on the deep water in Egypt. That's a reserve of 30 TCF with existing other reserve that has been already discovered in neighboring country in East Mediterranean, which are up to proven 30 TCF as well so far. You have a big, the economy of scale of a 60 TCF already discovered with potential more discovery with ongoing activity in the different countries in that place, including Egypt. With the existing facility in Egypt, that's mainly main gas grid, different pipeline, different existing offshore pipeline owned by BG, Shell, and Eni and others, and Apache all over the Mediterranean in Egypt, with two stranded LNG facility that have a capacity of 20 BCM per year that are not working anymore. You have the proper infrastructure that can bring all that gas in the East Mediterranean to the Egyptian, let's say, onshore part. Whatever will be used on the local market to develop a value added in different industry, and the rest can be easily exported to the international market. And that's what we mean by a hub. We've seen this in the Gulf of Mexico. It has been successfully done in the North Sea between different countries, and we are planning, the government and the business community are planning to capitalize on this large discovery.
Okay, thank you. With this, I turn to renewable energy. Again, with the last 18 months have been very exciting in terms of renewable energy announcements in Egypt, with the Feedin Tariff regulation in place. As His Excellency the Minister mentioned, it is a very attractive and generous and well-structured Feedin Tariff in the context of global regimes. There is a target of 20% by 2020. It is a stretch target and will require very aggressive investment and implementation. With this, I would like to ask Siemens Dietmar to give a view on the Feed-in tariff and the renewable energy in general in Egypt, please.
We believe that the government of Egypt and the country of Egypt has taken an important step with the feed-in tariff to put an energy mix in place. And we just heard from His Excellency the Minister what is the envisaged rate also, which is 60 to 70% fossil, and you have also then 30 to 40% renewables. And I think that's perfect for a country like Egypt, which has now the natural resources in gas, which we just heard, and are developing the gas fields, but also has perfect wind conditions in the country, maybe the best ones in the Middle East when you look from the wind conditions. So to exploit that and to develop now and develop also foreign direct investment, I think that's the right strategy for Egypt to go for. This all goes along with financing, so the government is setting the framework to do these investments, and we also see that there is now momentum taking up in Egypt to come to the country and to invest there. And we will also support from Siemens and foster that this is happening. Additionally, from a point of view, renewables, we are believing in this country, and that we are believing in that country means also that we build a factory there. We have plans to build a blade factory in the country, which will then support also the local market. And this local market we see also in the wind technology, where we can apply the latest technology, so we will have direct drive technology there. And that's, I think, helping the market also to make the profits in the investments really that make this investment sustainable. So we believe Egypt will be a very good market for renewables and for a good energy mix in the future.
Great, thank you. You touched upon the initiative of the blade factory, but there's also been announcements of 2 gigawatt development with Siemens. Is that something that will be done under the feed-in tariff, or how is that done in the context of the larger renewable energy?
That will be done within the feed-in tariff. It will be investments where Siemens is participating, but also other partners are investing, and we are supporting also partners in the market to do this 2 gigawatt deployment. But the government, we know from the ministers that there are even more aggressive plans to have more wind in the future in the country. So we really believe in that here, and we will foster also and support these developments.
Great. I turn now to Aqua, also a very large regional power developer and a company that has a strong focus on Egypt in conventional and renewables. So Andre, please, can you give us your view on the feed-in tariff and renewables, and what are ACWA's plans in the country, please?
Yeah, we see as well very positive the feed-in tariff, the initiative for Egypt as, I would say, first step, stimulation of the market, attracting investor. With maybe a little bit difference what is happening for PV. PV, as you know, the connection agreement have been signed, bonds have been submitted, and a lot of the developers are moving to finalize and through financial closing. Wind PPA has been just recently published, and the structure of the tariff has been announced as well. I would say a very clever approach, whereas the first 5 years have a very attractive tariff, but in the next period of the PPA, terms of the PPA, the tariff will reduce to more competitive level and connected to the equivalent hours. I would say wind as well as its challenges in terms of measurement. It might require a bit more time in terms of reaching financial close for wind than PV, but the program is very interesting and positive. I would say just one note on the PV side. The tariff is very attractive, as we mentioned, has been mentioned before, 14 US dollar cents per kilowatt hour. I would say in the perspective of an operator in long term, we see and we welcome very much the initiative of the BO approach, where Egypt tends to, let's say, go to a competitive approach and setting a tariff that is, let's say, more on the market side level in terms of long-term sustainability.
Okay, thank you. Again, I pose the question to ACWA and Siemens. What are some of the challenges you see with the feed-in tariff, or possibly areas for improvement within the feed-in tariff implementation plan?
I would say, as we mentioned before, I will say the last part of the previous panel, I mean, one of the issues, of course, is the feed-in tariff is Egypt, the tariff is, payment is Egyptian pound denominated. The issue, of course, will be convertibility. There are ways to solve that. I think some of those have been discussed before by the minister. I would say one of the points that maybe could be worked out is the priority of the US dollar available in the country for the guarantee of termination, mostly on termination from the PPA, in order to guarantee the investor and as well the lenders that is in case of termination, the US dollar can be used on priority. It has been done in the past already. Egypt honored that in the past. So this maybe is one point of improvement on that scheme, on that PPAs.
Okay. Again, the question to Dietmar. I mean, we have seen multilaterals financing, or at least extending term sheets and you know, commitments for financing for the wind and the solar. But what we're really seeing in the market is more the solar to be advancing maybe at a slightly faster pace. Any views on that, or also your views of the energy mix within solar to wind, within the renewable energy context in Egypt?
I mean, what we are seeing is that the renewables are developing in the country, and I cite what Andrea was saying, that there need to be a certain stimulus now to kick it off and to have the right mix of currencies also. But what we also need is, I think now really in Egypt, the first projects which are running. And I think that will give a big gain to wind. We really believe that wind, as I said earlier already, is important and it will add really substantial capacity to the market, which is, I think, necessary. We are believing in that, as I said, and therefore also the wind factory, which supports that. And therefore we are also talking to other developers to bring them to the country and to support this project. So we foster that. And what we also do in addition is that we are supporting the grid, because we all talk about power generation and renewables. The grid in Egypt is also developed over years, and they also invest now heavily into the grid to build the infrastructure so that all these renewables can be attached to the grid, and that this grid is also capable to bring then the energy to the customer. So that's an area where we are focusing on, and that's what we are pursuing.
Great. While we're on that topic, I would like to touch on what do you see as the social and economic impacts of, for example, the blade factory or the renewable energy development for the country at large?
I mean, as announced, the blade factory will maybe generate up to 1,000 jobs in the country in the direct way or in an indirect way, as companies are supporting us on that. We have now at the moment ongoing a lot of construction in the gas area. You know that we have signed the biggest contracts ever in our company history and the biggest power stations ever built in the world. And with our H-class technology, which is the most advanced technology in terms of efficiency, with more than 76 machines in the market. And that's generating a lot of jobs. The construction is ongoing at the moment, so I think our partners and ourselves, we are very busy in the country to create new jobs around the energy industry. And this will build also the foundation for future other industries which rely on electricity to be grown in the country. And that's what we are doing, and that's what we are fostering.
Okay, thank you. Now I turn to the energy mix, the question around, the ideal energy mix, if there is such, a combination. As mentioned and as known to most of the audience, Egypt is very heavily dependent on gas and hydrocarbons for power generation. We also have older plants that are not necessarily that efficient when compared to new technology. Gas production plants. So I turn the question to Khaled in terms of how do you see the energy mix evolving over the medium and long term in Egypt?
Sometimes people think that I'm the wrong person to ask this question because I'm a gas veteran. But actually in the gas industry and in Egypt, we are a strong believer that a mix of energy is fundamental, is essential for national security, for economical security. We should not be misled by the actual and temporary, if I may say, price of oil. We've seen price of oil barrel above the $100. The history can be repeated and repeated, so we should not fall in this short trap. A mix of energy is extremely important to develop the know-how, to develop the technicians, to develop the local industry, the local assembly, and then that will help you to cut down the cost of even the renewable energy that some of the people would say it is expensive. It's not when you do it locally, properly in your local market. As the minister, His Excellency Minister Ashraf just said, Egypt is going strongly toward the direction of a mix of energy that include coal, include renewable energy, include nuclear, a mix of gas, efficient gas utilization, optimizing the utilization, prioritizing the utilization of the gas, so not just give the gas to all the industry. It depends where you make your best value added down on the value chain of the industry and the commodity. We in Egypt, as TAQA as a company, and within the Egyptian Gas Association, and as well within the International Gas Association, we ally with the renewable energy industry. We are an integrated party with the renewable energy industry. When the wind stops blowing or the sun stops shining, the gas is always there to complement and to continue the production and the activity of producing proper energy.
Okay, thank you. Any views on the 20% target? Because that's one sized up compared to the potential growth in installed capacity is around 8 gigawatts by 2020.
I hate managing by slogan. And actually, we've been hitting 20% by 2020, 8 years ago. And it was a repetition of what happened in Europe. But I would love to see concrete programs and real programs that translate with proper milestone. Yes, the Egyptian government has started a very serious program over the last 2 years. The government itself, up to the president of Egypt, is monitoring the progress of these programs. But it's very difficult to say today that by 2020 we'll have 2020. That's after tomorrow, almost. But I expect a good chunk of the renewable energy to represent a decent percentage of the Egyptian renewable energy. It is expected to increase gradually over the coming 10 to 15 years, but 20% is a little bit difficult in the coming 4 years.
Okay. We talked about Zohr gas field and that it potentially will supply all of the requirements of the Egyptian gas demand, which means also power plants. Perhaps I would like to ask Annie, how do you see this interfering, if you will, or making renewables less of an economic option for the government?
Well, as my colleague Khalid has said, I think, and also by the CEO of Siemens, it has to be looked at as a complementary. It's not really one replacing the other. We strongly believe that the future is renewable, but definitely we need a bridge to cross before we get to considering renewable as the primary source of energy. We have an abundance of natural gas which can be used while we're developing the renewables. The target of 20% set by the Egyptian government and stated earlier by His Excellency the Minister is challenging, but it's not impossible to achieve.
Okay, thank you. I turn now to another interesting part of the energy mix, which is coal development, imported coal development. And I would like to take the view of Andre, particularly that Aqua is involved in that energy production.
Yeah, I would say one first point is the fuel security of the countries. Of course, differentiation is a very important aspect, and in this, coal is a differentiation. The other aspect to consider is now how the load requirement is going to play in the next years. Making assumption that, of course, PV will shave in the peak during the day, wind will do the evening, and a little bit more the mid-marine during the day as well. The question is how will play the base load in the future. And the base load is either gas, so we'll see how the gas will play in terms of utilization for export, utilization for other uses, industrial uses, and how much will be used for power generation. The reality is that, of course, coal is less financeable, I would say, generally in the market, but we as Aqua Power, we have proven that supercritical coal here in this part of the world is become economical, what is called the green coal with the DIVA project. And I think this will be one aspect important to consider in the fuel mix for the future in Egypt. One part that has not been discussed, I think, is in the base load, is the renewable base load, what we call thermosolar. Thermosolar itself is a technology that has a storage already available. It's a thermal storage and use the potential of the sun, and it can be solar dispatchable during the day. So there's another aspect that is to be used in the energy mix with the coal, but with more renewable, we'll say thermosolar in terms of base load conditions.
Okay, thanks. And do you think the country is prepared to receive all of this coal feedstock? Because, I mean, it has to be imported, I presume, from other countries into ports with very large amounts. So is there, on the government level, for example, a strategy for importation, or is that something that the developer will be responsible for?
Typically, the developer, the operator of the plant is responsible for. There are different approaches, but it's the fuel risk can be taken by the government or can be taken by the developer. I would say typically in a certain type of contract it's taken by the developer.
Okay. And I turn to Siemens to take your view on the energy mix as well. I mean, when we look at Western European countries, you still see coal and gas, depends on which country you're looking at, and also nuclear, presenting very large percentages of the energy mix. Since Siemens is a major gas turbine producer as well, I would like your view on the evolution of the energy mix.
Yeah, as I said, we believe that Egypt is on a good path. 60 to 40, 70 to 30 renewables and gas, I think, is a good target that the country is going for. And when I take my home country, Germany, we are at maybe 40, 45 renewables, and the rest is fossil. I think that's what Egypt is also heading for, and I think that's the right mix. I'm not so much commenting on nuclear as we are not in that, but we believe that renewables in the mix with solar and wind is the right approach, plus the gas. And with our efficient technology, if you put then really gas turbines in place which have a very high efficiency, and Egypt is paving the way in the Middle East also for the H-class, what we call H-class turbines, which is the most efficient in the world, and that is also making efficient use of the gas. And I think that's the right attitude, and with 24 units that will be installed there in the next 2 years, that is, I think, a very good achievement.
Okay, out of interest, what sort of efficiencies are we talking about? So, you know, the latest GTs that will be installed versus, for example, some of the existing old plants.
I mean, when you go in the average efficiency in the country, then it's maybe in the range of 30 to 40, and the latest technology is 60 plus. So
Okay.
that is really giving you the mileage in terms of saving gas in the future and making efficient use of it. It's not to say I don't go into gas, it's making efficient use of the gas that you are burning in gas turbines.
Absolutely. I turn to another topic whilst we're closing this session, which is, you know, we have global, international, regional, and local players on the panel, and would be interesting to take their views on what are the positives they see when they invest in their different areas in Egypt, and also what are some of the challenges and areas of improvement. And I'll start with Andre, please.
Yeah, definitely positive in the sense of resource availability. The potential of renewable is enormous. In fact, we have focused on the feed-in tariff as well, of course, with smaller capacity. We have MOU signed for 2,000 megawatt of PV and wind. And of course, we have also focused on the gas side with the Dairut project in final discussion, and as well with MOU for coal and MOU for gas. So very positive. I would say for feed-in tariff, there are very small challenges that will be definitely solved, but the program is very positive and courageous as well for the industry as a general.
Okay, and Dietmar?
So for Siemens, Egypt is, we call it a home country. We are since more than 110 years there working in the country with own people. We find very good local partners there where we can work with, especially now during the construction of the big sites that we have. We find with Olsvidi and with Orascom and others which are working with us, very good local partners. We have a very strong local workforce there, and the country with more than 90 million citizens is also giving us in the future the potential to grow that. And that we will do. We have a very big setup there in Egypt with 700 people, so we really utilize Egyptian people for the Egyptian market, and that's what we are going for. And of course, and I also want to mention that here in this round, we find really an area where we have also an area of integrity. So we have kicked off integrity initiatives, compliance initiatives in Egypt, and we are finding also the support of the government and the local industry there to really build a sustainable development for Egypt. So we are very happy with what we are seeing there, and we are really congratulating also the Egyptian people and the Egyptian government for what they are all doing to go into a bright energy future and a bright future for the country.
Thank you. And then
For Eni also, we have been in the country for over 60 years, so we are not a new investors. We have already established a good relation, but the Zohr Discovery could be a new milestone. We have a fast-track development plan. We expect to have first gas by the end of 2017, early 2018. This, of course, is going to change drastically the stage there, job opportunities, and we are quite confident that the local contribution will help us achieve our target.
As a local investor, I think Egypt is a sustainable growing market. The energy demand growth annually at average of 8%. There's nothing similar in the area around. My company over the last 10 years were trying to invest more in Africa, but we felt that we are spreading thin. The real growing market is Egypt. There are some challenges, but the growth and the opportunity are very solid. We operate 3,200 employees in more than 18 governorates in Egypt. We're very, very comfortable. We are increasing our investment in Egypt. There are some challenges. The minister mentioned that deregulation, the government is becoming more of a regulator than a player, and we're encouraging this and we're supporting all these steps.
thank you. And I would like to add from our side, also at EFG, we're a local investment manager. So on behalf of investors, we are also focusing most of our attention on renewable energy, with a view to invest in the equity tranches of various projects alongside developers such as the ones here on the panel to support the program. We also think it's a very well robust and bankable program overall when it comes to renewable energy development. And yeah, so with that concluding remarks, I would like to thank my panel and speakers. and the audience. Thank you very much.